This has been so chaotic. So please tell just briefly what happened on your end just now.
Oh, so what happened on my end was the second I went to start setting up my shot, I like critically lost internet. Like had to call, had to have them do some shit, go through a pinhole on the back and hold something down for 30 seconds. I thought that this recording wasn't going to be happening tonight. So I was going to shower. I didn't. I was going to change. I didn't. I was going to eat dinner. I didn't. What I did was dealt with this. So it's me. I got this can of C4, Phil. C4. It's an
Isn't
explosive
that
energy drink. I'm going to use
yeah?
this.
Isn't that pre-workout?
Oh, I hope not. It's just an energy drink.
Oh, okay.
Ah,
Yeah,
I love this band.
So while you were dealing with that, I was setting up my shot. Parker just threw up everywhere while Haley was trying to put him to bed. So like you were going like, I gotta set up in 10 minutes. Like I couldn't even respond to you because my camera was set up and like I was away from the computer and like yeah, he threw up everywhere. I had to clean it up on the floor. And I was actually describing to Haley, it's funny, you don't get grossed out by your kids' own puke. And the best way to describe that is the reason why is it's like he's yours, right?
No,
he's like yours.
It's like my
you made him
dog's poo. I don't really care. I'll pick it up.
It's like your dog's poo, but more similar to like how you don't get grossed out by your own farts.
You don't get grossed out by your kids' farts? That's interesting.
No, like your own farts. You know how you don't get like grossed out.
Right.
You know how you don't get. That's like how like that's the best way to compare why you don't get grossed out by like your kids like throw up or like poop or anything. It's like you made this. This is like yours, so you don't get grossed out by it because it's like yours. I don't know how to.
But do you get grossed out by their farts?
He doesn't really fart a whole lot, and they don't really smell.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And but his poops smell, and those can get gross.
What is up, Panic folks? Welcome back to Locals Only Part Mother Frickin' 10. We are back. This is a big one. There are a lot of bands on this list. You guys release way too much music. It's like the Grim Reaper breathing on my neck behind me at all times is the just sheer amount of music we have to talk about. We write notes for this shit. I edit it and that takes hours, but we do it because we love you guys. Phil, other than the vomit, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm just chilling out on a nice Sunday afternoon. You know, I got a pretty haggard sleep last night, but you know, that's how it is. That's the dad life. But this is Locals Only. This is your underground music cheat sheet featuring mix of bands of Southern Ontario and beyond. I'm coming at you from New York.
What? What? The intrusive thought one.
I can't tell you why I said that. I mean, we got over 30 bands here on this list, and we're here to discuss them and like talk about all their latest singles and records. And we even got more slated for the new future because like we're just covering a bit of that old like late May or like some June stuff. But Ontario's pumping out a bunch of stuff at the same like an extreme rate. Like it's hard to keep up with. It's a big job, but Ty and I've committed to it.
Little catch up.
We'll catch up. And yeah, no, we're super stoked.
I also want to give a quick shout out at the top of the show because they're not on this list to Terminator, who will be playing in Toronto with Speed and Angel Dust. That is
super sick.
Absurd. That is so sick. And also, favorite band of the show, Better Lovers, did announce a show in Toronto with Spy and Full of Hell. I will be checking that out. I finally get to see Full of Hell. I remember in the reaction, we were talking about how I'd never seen them. And Phil, you bought a car.
That's right. That's right. I did buy a car. This is my first car I've ever owned. I've always driven my wife's car. And now this is like something that's in my name. I paid for it myself. I'm feeling like a grown. You know, it's funny that you say that. Like I got an air freshener, a little SpongeBob air freshener. Nice. You know what I mean? And I got the Bluetooth set up because this thing only has a CD player and a tape player.
Yeah, you figured it out?
Yeah, I just got one of the radio transmitter things with like a Bluetooth, like easy peasy. Yeah, no, yeah, it's a Prius. That's all.
Shout out Phil's Prius. We're happy for you. And
We
yeah,
love the Prius.
we love Prius. Great car. Great economical vehicle. You could trick it out like people do with Honda Civics, get some like floodlights in there, make it just noisy and fucking annoying.
All right, first up the bat, we've got Ascension Blacklist with their cover of Limp Bizkit's Break Stuff. They're the homies, the metalcore home dogs.
Just one of those days where you don't want to wake up. Everything is fucked, everybody sucks. You don't really know why, but you want to justify every soul turn off.
A very true to the form Break Stuff cover by Limp Bizkit. This is just like covered in metal and hardcore, just like recently. Like I think this cover happens pretty often amongst bands. Like my band did it back in the day. Straight Reads the Line did it back in the day. So when I saw Ascension Blacklist do this, I was like, I kind of knew what we were gonna get into, and this is like very true to its form. The vocals are obviously the biggest difference in this, and I think that if I'm being honest, kind of takes away from what the original is, because I think the original kind of was a little bit more impactful with like Fred just rapping. However, this is like not bad by any means, and the production's always good. Like Ascension Blacklist always know how to put out their tunes. This is homebrewed. I know that they do it all themselves, and like you always gotta recognize that with a band like at a level where Ascension Blacklist is at the moment, and like that's super cool. But yeah, I don't know. This wasn't my favorite Break Stuff cover. I've heard a lot of Break Stuff covers. Is that too harsh?
No, I mean it's hard to go wrong with like a cover of Break Stuff. It's gonna be good because it's just a well written song.
It's
They
a
do
good song. Like you can always get hyped to it. I'm not saying it's bad by any means. It's just
I
those
think for their
vocals.
shows is where this
Yeah.
song will
Oh,
really live.
for sure. Absolutely.
Mhm.
And you know what? We used to do covers of like Corn and like Slipknot, but we never recorded them because like they got some singing involved, and I'm not like the greatest singer, so like I don't know. We also kept it pretty true to the form. I don't. You're absolutely right. You play these songs live, people are gonna go bananas. We played the friggin' Lice by
Yeah,
Slipknot
ooh,
at the
yeah.
Kill Room, and it went bananas. People, I think someone broke an arm. It was insane. Yeah, absolutely bonkers. So yeah, that's a good point. So this is like a song that they're going to be able to play live, and this is where they're going to like tear shit up. This is where they're going to get people hyped. This is like a mid song. Or mid said song that you would play, and just everyone's gonna go bananas for. So
Mhm.
yeah, I guess I'm excited about that for them. Shout
Yeah.
out to them, and we always and they're the homies, right? We love
Oh
the
yeah.
folks in Ascension Blacklist. They're good
Yeah.
homies.
They're the dogs, yeah, the home dogs. Yeah, they do, like you said, they stay mostly true to the original formula, and the vocals are really what anchor it to being like Ascension Blacklist. They do add like an extra breakdown into the mix. I think, like I was saying, that yeah, this will really live at their shows. This is where this is going to be in its best form to see and hear. If I was in charge of arranging this song, I would have added in some sort of like gang vocal or just a
Hmm.
cleaner delivery with more of like a Durst-esque delivery layered in with Michael's vocals on that hook. If you had a gang
Hmm.
vocal in his voice going with that, I think it would have just helped sort of create the party vibe around it. Even on like the fat lip part of this song is so iconic. I think having like some sort of gang vocal layering on there would have really helped bring it to life. It is just nitpicking. I do think that this is a good cover. These are great dudes. And again, I think that this is the type of thing that's mainly made for being able to get to play this at your shows, and they just
Hmm.
happen to have the means to record this. They didn't have to pay to go record this cover. They can just record it, mix and master it themselves. So why not throw it out there?
And you know what? Part of the reason I think Tyler and I are being specifically nitpicky about this cover is like we were there, man. We lived in the friggin' '90s, man. Like we went through the new metal. We knew when this song came out, and like so, like we very heard it. We've heard it for a very long time. Like, and I guess maybe that's part of the reason we're being a little bit more old headed about it.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, like I really like their original music. So
Yeah, of
yeah,
course.
that's definitely more important. So yeah, shout out Ascension Blacklist. We love you boys. Come on the pod soon. Ottawa's Emo Rangers. Is it Tith? Is that how I would say that? Is it Tith?
It, It's fifth.
Fifth?
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
spelt it
don't
wrong
know.
the entire time. I
Yeah.
typed that into Spotify and I swear I got it. Shit.
You just listen to a different song. Complete.
I hope we listened to the same song. The one I listened to was good. Fifth put out a song called Tough Shit. This is a very nice feeling of throwback to like early 2000s emo. The particular flavor that I sort of got here was Hawthorne Heights. There's a really
cool.
good vocal performance on here. Guitars are nice and chimey. I like the lead work. Hook is super hooky. I like the subtle little breakdown that they use as a bridge. I like the muted part with the like subdued vocals going back into the hook at the end of the song. I feel like that was a super overused thing in the early 2000s, but it feels refreshing here because I don't think we really hear people like do you know the transition I'm talking about? They just kind of do the first part of the chorus, but more mellow, and then just pick it back up. I feel like everyone used to do that, and people don't really do it anymore. And I really liked hearing it again. Yeah, this hook has been bouncing around in my head since I heard it. This song's great. This is a great song.
Yeah, super catchy. I definitely went back to this song a couple times. This is a solid single. The execution and performances on this track are right spot on. This has all sorts of attributes of like a growingly successful band. Like you can definitely see this going somewhere. Sonically speaking, actually, I was kind of getting movements. 4 Year Strong kind of had a baby, kind of this like emo inspired easy core kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
Blending like aggressive punk style riffs with like a more emotive, passionate singing. This song is catchy. The lyrics are relatable. Doesn't overstay its welcome. There's not too many like easy core bands going on like in Ontario. So this is something that could definitely kind of take advantage of. That's for sure. And yeah, it's keeping it refreshing here on the channel too. So we'd like to see it too. Kind of like I put for fans of like Sum 41, Set Your Goals, and 4 Year Strong. But Hawthorne Heights, I could definitely hear that too.
Hell yeah. Shout out Fifth. And shout out Tith if there's a band called Tith. Shout you guys in general.
Garden City Guard Dogs over it have their new EP out. Yeah, it's an EP, but it's a garden style. This is this complete turnaround from the first EP. That was more like a noise rock kind of band going on. This is more like, I don't know, got more like hardcore into it. They kind of leaned into like a more New York hardcore style with like the vocals taking kind of like inspiration, kind of like maybe from like Madball or maybe like Sick of It All, kind of even Biohazard, like kind of like implementing that like hip hop into like the hardcore with like the vocal delivery, if that makes any sense. Yeah, constantly referring to St. Catharines, the Garden City. Over it manages to accomplish what the first EP kind of lacked in the production. The production was kind of fuzzy and like gritty and like rough around the edges, and that was kind of the character of that. Like, you know, we've seen it before in the past with other bands, but like this one's kind of cleaned up entirely, and this is just like a little bit more onto the metronome. And I think that deserves recognition. It's a little bit more cohesive. The band feels tighter. Yeah, like they just want to kind of take themselves a little bit more seriously in how they present themselves. Yeah, no, this is cool. This is great. This is 7 gardens out of 10 cities.
Wow, that's big. That's big. Yeah, no, talk about a level up. Like the production and the songwriting has improved so much since that debut demo. That debut demo, now that I think about it, I would call it accidental power violence. Like it was like accidentally a power violence album. This is definitely more of like a straight hardcore album, which I think was sort of the intended goal when the band formed. And it sounds great. I like the old timey nod to St. Catharines at the beginning. It sucked me in right away. Austin sounds big. He sounds pissed. He sounds nice and clear on this one, which is so great to finally hear him properly like that. Lots of breakdowns, lots of 2-step riffs. Love the long ass breakdown at the end of No Rules. My favorite 2 tracks were New Joint and Up to the Youth, sorry. The 2-step riff in Youth just goes dummy. And the way they outro to whatever that ending song is that they sampled at the end of this, I don't know what it is, but the way it sort of spirals into it on that the perfect timing of the song ending and that sample hitting is just really good. It's really tight. It fits the intro so well. And yeah, the biggest thing about this release is just that this is such a massive improvement in such a small amount of time. It's actually kind of crazy. So yeah, shout out to them. This is a great EP. I love these songs, and it's nice to hear them cleaned up and to get like a full idea of the vision of what they've been going with on these songs. Because I've heard them live several times, like these songs, but now I can really hear them in their true form. They sound sick. So, guys, if you were paying attention to our channel, you saw Off Leash Week, baby. Mile End had a video for Bind. Scab had a video for Park the Gauge.
Such a good song.
It's a great song. And then the just total surprise hardcore track that Doflame released, Can't Stand No One. We reacted to all three of those videos. If you missed Off Leash Week, shame on you. That's awful. Why would you do that? Shout out Off Leash. We're going to bring them up again in this locals only. Yeah, we'll get into it later, but Brampton's got something's going on.
They got that juice.
They're becoming the London of
Ontario.
Of Ontario.
Niagara Neo Psych Days on Parade have a single out called My Blonde Friend Named Alice. Feels very new wave inspired, kind of like bands like the Go-Go's and like the Bangles come to mind when I hear this. This is like also kind of sounds like the lady who sings in like From Autumn to Ashes. You know how
okay, yeah.
In the like the short stories and the tragic endings and a couple other tracks. This was like a cool blend of like rock, alternative indie with like a new approach into the mix. It also had some flavors of like punk and grunge. This was definitely super cool. I enjoyed this. The vocals seemed to be like driven like a lot, like driving the song mainly, and they were sitting in interesting pockets of it. The vocals also make it like super accessible. I feel like if they're any different, you'd be bridging like an avant-garde kind of indie rock band, but something they kind of like they didn't they just rode the border of it. So yeah, this was super cool. This kind of feels like it would belong in like I don't know why I wrote this down, but kind of feels like it would belong in the bonus section of Guitar Hero 3. Like you would unlock the song where like, you know, alongside with like the Gallows and like the Sleeping and like Fall of Troy. It's like just like a weird like indie song that you would come across. So that's I don't know why that came to mind, but I put 7 days out of 10 parades.
Wow, guys. Yeah, someone put this song on Clone Hero if you haven't already. Yeah, this was a pleasant surprise. I've been aware of this band. Like, I've known about their name for quite some time, but I think this is the first time I've ever sat down and listened to them, like, recorded. The song has a super nice lo-fi quality to the production, minimalistic, but, like, surprisingly vibrant. Because of, like, a lot of, like, the lead guitar work just brings, like, a brightness to the whole sound, despite the fuzzy, bassy minimalism that it's kind of encompassed in. Reminds me just a little bit of like what Paramore is doing on their latest album. That's sort of like indie chicka 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 sort of. I don't know what that meant. Yeah, reminds me of Paramore because that's how my brain works. Has a lot of fun guitar work, a bouncy rhythm section. Yeah, this is a fun little moody track. I want to hear more from this band. It's super cool. I really liked this album. This is a Lamback hardcore outfit, Indian Giver, with their album Dark Legacy 3. This immediately reminded me of the album Pull the Thorns From Your Heart by Senses Fail, which is a very underappreciated record by them. The production, the songwriting, the guitar and bass tones, it really reminded me of Pull the Thorns From Your Heart because that's the only album I've heard with that very specific type of production in it. It's like just like a little smidge over lo-fi. It's really interesting. Yeah, I have a lot to say about this album. Give It Back is an absolutely furious start. Bouncy two-step laden hardcore. The breakdown at the end and the like Lamback focused lyrics, the song is just monstrous. It's really good. Next track is Soul Wound. We've talked about that song previously. It's crazy lyrically. It's like just so like haunting. Today is a Good Day is a certified head bobber, super infectious chorus. Blind
Mhm.
picks up the speed a bit, hits with a monster groove at the end. Blood on the Cross has such a good vocal performance on it, especially when the guest vocalist comes in and they're doing their vocal passages together. So good. Jail is like a punk song with like a System of a Down feeling lyrical structure to it.
Mhm.
Purity's heavy as hell. Guest vocal performance on that song, huge standout for me. Then, dude, the final track, White Yuppie Scum, is a crazy. It's like a soured acoustic track that turns into this like big, fuzzy, grungy ballad. Like it's like the lyrics are great, the vocal performance is great, and it's so unexpected and so unlike everything else on the rest of this album. It just comes out of absolutely nowhere.
Mhm.
And they nail it. They nail this like weird grunge ballad song they do. This band is like a great addition to the hardcore scene, but the vocalist takes this band to such like an entirely new level. Lyrics are great, vocal delivery is unique, it sounds super pissed off, and that final track just really shows how capable of a songwriter they are. They could just be in like a moody grunge band too. Like it was just sick. It was such a nice surprise for an end song. Normally I see an end song and I see it's longer than the rest of the songs and I'm expecting like an 8-minute like doom metal song or like a big instrumental thing. And this was like just it was cool. It was really cool. Yeah, stellar album. I'll be listening to this a lot.
There's something super original sounding about what they do. Like they do it so well. They kind of have a cool blend of metal, punk, and hardcore all together. It just makes it sound so natural sounding. It's great. I also like the branding behind the band. That's something cool that I enjoy. Like the hockey mask. I think like I feel like they're taking it back from the abomination that we knew of freaking Hollywood Undead back in. I mean, I guess it's like 20 years ago. So we can get over it, but like I love it. I love it. I love the branding. It's super cool.
This song, dude.
Dude, this song is so
It's
sick.
unbelievable. Go ahead.
Ontario Party Foul. Avem have a song called Bird Perv.
Don't be thinking I'm a perv obsessed with tits and cocks. They're common names of sunburned friends I hope that no one mocks.
This is probably one of my favorite songs on this list. It kind of checks all the boxes for me. It's silly, leans into what it is. This band is hilarious. They're currently on tour in the UK, and one of their day offs, like they went to a bird sanctuary. Like they're legit. This is
They
in the
live it.
front. They are nerding about birds. Like this is like a punk rock, like Ramones core kind of, like with like comedy, tongue in cheek. This is a great example of like something you can easily get into and like laugh along to. Like we covered their last EP, Nerding About Burden. But yeah, this song is just about a character who's simply obsessed with birds, and people just mistake him as an old pervert because
Yeah.
he's talking about tits and cocks and
Hooters.
and Hooters and yeah, hilarious concept, well executed, super silly. This was really cool. The production's really cool, catchy. Yeah, this falls in line with like 90s Green Day, kind of like Goldfinger, and like maybe even Mass Intruder, kind of like
Yeah, I felt the same way. I got the same
yeah,
sort of idea.
yeah,
Feeling.
pop punk in its glory.
I really normally hate comedy music. Like it really isn't for me. Like I'm like anti Weird Al Yankovic sort of shit. You know how I feel about the Lonely Island and stuff like that. Avem break through that barrier for me. I love this track so much. It's like a stoner thought come to life. Like, imagine we wrote a song about how like I say Hooters, but I'm talking about a bird. Like it's like literally like the dumbest thought like turned into a song. It's unbelievable. Song is fun and bright, classic pop punk. Hookiness of the vocals and the lyrics are what are going to draw you to this song. Like they're great. Hooters and cock jokes everywhere. This is like a song from a band that really just embraces their gimmick hard and it works for them so well. They continue to fly high above many of their landmark contemporaries. 7 breadcrumbs out of 10. I took your bit. It's my bit now.
No, that's great. That's great.
All right, guys. So, Welland reggae band Street Pharmacy released a song called Some Days.
Make your voice feel less triggered since wordsmith up. Now we're not allowed to flow that hard or go that far, like rock and roll with no guitar, and though that's par for every single blow bar star.
We reviewed a single from them a couple months back, and it was fine. This stinks. It's like I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what to say. This reminds me of when bands like Gym Class Heroes, Down with Webster, and like Stereos were pushing into the mainstream, and it just makes this song sound so dated. You could convince me that this was like a failed G-Eazy or Macklemore song. Like it's no good. So I noticed something while I was listening to the song too, and I don't know what, I never read these, but I just saw Street Pharmacy's Spotify bio. I'm just gonna go ahead and read it to you.
Oh no.
All right. So it says, at first glance, we're a reggae rock band, but we're more like a local historians disguised as reggae rock band with hip hop and other influences thrown into the mix. If sharing stories about our city of Welland sounds boring, it's not. Then you're just not accustomed to small town degradation and degeneracy. The kind of stuff you see in the everyday struggle of regular people trying to make sense of a complex existence. We tell their stories, and by extension, our story, with our music.
That's so cringy, dude.
Yeah, so chew on that. That's real.
This is unapologetic culture appropriation at its finest. You said it stinks. It stinks like patchouli. This is a white dude with dreads. This is like, back in the day, like back in 1988 when Bradley Newell came on the scene with Sublime. It felt authentic because it was coming out of Long Beach, California. Sublime was able to marry both hip-hop culture with like a reggae sense, kind of just doing it seamlessly, kind of creating its own lane, kind of someone like, and here 30 years later, we have bands like Street Pharmacy lazily writing its own tributes to the band without feeling authentic in any way possible. This is a Welland-based band. This is like an all-white hockey bro band, painfully ripped off Sublime's legacy. Their boring performances don't make up for the lack of authenticity. This kind of sounds like a Weird Al deep cut, like original song.
His best songs.
Yeah, this doesn't do anything for me. The drums stay the same. It doesn't, kind of just like stays there the same time. The song is like a 4-part bridge and then quickly jumps back into the boring dynamic it rides. The chorus is incredibly lazy with the emphasis of some days and then quickly taking like a shady Snoop Dogg, like, well, honestly, like this just keeps repeating itself. The only interesting part about the song was the trumpet part, and it was ruined because there's like spoken word and like record scratches happening over top. This is like what Greta Van Fleet to Led Zeppelin is. Boring, blatant ripoff of a tasteless tribute. Needless to say, I'm not a fan of this song or the band. This is 7 felonies out of 10.
No. Oh, what does that mean?
All right, next up, we have Toronto post-hardcore poster boys Conversation with Broken Bottles. This band has been making some serious moves over the last handful of years. If I'm not mistaken, they actually went into 97.7 Hits FM's Rock Search contest, which is like brought in bands like The Trues, Glorious Sons, and like Finger 11, if I'm not mistaken. This is like tasteful radio metalcore. This is kind of super cool, which isn't a bad thing. Like bands like Papa Roach kind of rides that line. Even Architects nowadays. Nothing Nowhere comes to mind too, with like that Linkin Park core that we kind of talk. This is super cool. This is this subgenre isn't particularly my like favorite when I go to like metalcore, but like I could definitely recognize and respect its importance, because you need bands like this to kind of get younger folks and even older folks kind of even into heavy stuff. The characteristics of it are super cool and definitely accessible for like maybe those demographics. I also like to point out that the 2000 kind of post-hardcore inspired kind of like Johnny Craig like singing, like that high singing, like Craig Owens and like Anthony Green kind of come to mind when I hear this. It's super cool.
Yeah, I wonder if this will click in your mind. I don't know if you can picture the song in your head right now, but to me this sounded like an Under Oath song. Like
Oh,
Only
cool.
Chasing
Yeah.
Safety era Under Oath. I got big Only Chasing Safety vibes on this. Very, very strong hook on this song. Super sticky. Absolutely great vocal performance on here. I love the drumming on this track. There are so many satisfying fills over this. I like the dense, fuzzy guitar tones. The breakdown sounds great. Song has a strong flow, a nice sense of cohesion from beginning to end. These guys know how to write a catchy ass song.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. Good stuff. That's my boy.
My
Don't talk
boy.
to him.
Don't
That's my boy.
don't talk to him. Don't.
Don't be talking to my boy like that.
Mm,
So next up, guys, we have Toronto Dank Doom, Lapsaria. Big atmospheric doomy
mhm.
track, very dungeonous sounding, very evil sounding. Drums are bananas in this track. They really give the song a huge sense of character. The bass tone sounds really enormous in this. You can hear it like rattling your speakers around. Lead guitar work fills out the last bridge of this track nicely. The song stays pretty true to like the doom sludge sort of formula, but damn, is it ever doomy and is it ever sludgy? And it's good. I like it.
It's always a good day when we get Lapsaria new music. This band has been around for over a decade, playing like shows few and far between. Jim, their vocalist, has been active in bands and playing guitar and drums just like throughout music. And I think Sinner, he actually asked Sinner to play his wedding, and we couldn't. This was insane. We always wanted to play a wedding, but we had already committed to a show, and we did that show instead. Would have been cool to play their wedding, but yeah, this is always the drummer of Lapsaria is super always on point. Sludgy tones, HM2. This is just like there's not a whole lot of like material you can find from this band too. Like I have one of the like 7 inches, and I think it's got some music that's not even online. I might be wrong about that, but there's something like mysteriously heavy about this band. Like, 'cause I really like Lapsaria. This is always super good. Kind of reminds me of like Full of Hell in the sense like it's just super abysmal, and yeah, I encourage anyone who's kind of like into that sound definitely check out Lapsaria. Like and if they ever see them play, like if they're gonna do a tour or something, they don't really do a whole lot of live shows, but when they do, they kind of pack them all together. Go see them. They're insane. They're insane live show. Next up, we have Niagara Thrash and Roll Midnight Ripper. This is a rad rock and roll track. This is like our fellow friend and podcast homie Dan Post's band. He does the vocals. He's a killer frontman. I knew Dan first and foremost as like a friend and like a fellow party goer, and like I didn't really know that he was like a talented like singer. I think he can also play guitar pretty well. So it's always good to see like and watch your friends like jump into bands, kind of like very similar to like how Steve from Sky Caught Fire is like okay, like
Sky.
yeah, like I didn't know he was able to like do a bunch of cool singing like that. But yeah, Dan's a good a homie. This is like Motorhead and Guns N' Roses had a bastard child. It's got grit to it. Traditionally speaking, it's like kind of rough around the edges, like, but the production is spot on. Like rough around the edges with like, you know, something you would probably put on if you wanted to get into a bar fight. That's what I'm kind of mean. Yeah, but it's injected with raw rock and roll, bright sounding guitars, ripping solo. If you're a fan of classic rock, like definitely check out like Midnight Ripper, like super accessible sound.
Yeah, this is unabashed fuzzy hard rock. Dan sounds great. Song has like an epic sort of feeling. It could be played in like a hockey stadium or used as like the backdrop of like a cheesy medieval fantasy action scene. The song is like a straightforward rock track, but I feel like you can hear some of the like power metal love in there on here. It's like Blind Guardian meets Metallica, but wrapped up in strictly hard rock. Solo rips, the shred riff at the end rips. Great track from great dudes. We love it on here. Niagara Indie Rock, The Minimum Wage, have released a self-titled song.
I keep hearing the economy's strong, but who's the song for? The rich get richer with downhill, we to find a dump for. Minimum wage has got me lost in thought.
This kind of feels like something Say Anything would have written, but with
Mhm.
a obviously very, very different vocal performance and cadence. The slightly like peaky and distorted speaking delivery on the verses conjures images of like a guy with like a megaphone yelling on Wall Street. Guitars are like minimalistic. They really do work for the vibe of the track. They do sound like super bright and chimey, and the leads sound nice. They cut through the mix really well. Rhythm section holds its own. Drums and the bass are both nice and mixed really well in here. And it's nice to see a band outside of hardcore and metal embracing the self-titled
Mhm,
song.
mhm.
It seems like that's a hardcore
Yeah.
metal thing, and here we are with just a indie rock band doing it. Yeah, this is like indie rock with a very punk mentality. I like that. I like
Yeah,
it.
yeah. This is like a song that's like ultimately the result of inflation. This is like a pop punk driven song talking about like how everything is simply too much money, talking about how expensive food, gas, and whatnot. I had a realization listening to this track though. Tell me if are you familiar with like the actor slash stand up comedian Johnny Pemberton?
No, I'm
Did
not.
did you
I'm
did you watch
of no use to this
did,
conversation. No.
did you watch Fallout, the show?
Like the show?
Hmm.
Yes, yes.
He was like the nerdy kid that was following the the dude in the armor from the Brotherhood.
Oh, okay. Like the comedian actor in general. I've seen that guy in a few things. Yeah.
That's what the vocals kind of sounded like in this song.
Interesting.
And like that's not like a dig at all. Like I thought, like I'm a fan of all of it, but like that's what I was getting when I was listening to this, except for the chorus. I also wrote down that like we only get to hear the self-titled song and name from only like hardcore bands like Cruel Hand and God's Hate, but like we love to see it outside the hardcore genre. Next up, we have Toronto post-hardcore revivalists Judgement with their song Currents, bracket Inhales. I'm not entirely sure what I mean when I say this, but I can hear the song playing at my local Good Life gym. like just like
Okay.
I
Okay.
think like it's a highly produced, accessible song and all around enjoyable. I can see like it's definitely like the appeal behind this track. I wish the chorus did something bigger, but it's catchy and performed incredibly well. I was just expecting something a little bit bigger behind the chorus, I guess. And what I mean by that, I just wish there was just a little bit more of a melody break after that chorus part. There was just like a little bit something that you could just dig your nails into. But like it's it was powerfully sung and loud. However, this is still a good song, especially in its production.
I actually really like this song. I think this was a great little post-hardcore release. This is like an episode for the emo kids. Well, this is an episode for everyone. We got a lot of hardcore coming up and stuff like that. But there's a lot of post-hardcore on here. This one gave me like Seosin and more so Armor for Sleep vibes. I kind of got from this. The vocal performance sounds great. Absolute sticker of a hook. I really liked the hook on here. Guitar leads add a lot of interesting texture. I like the drumming in this one a lot as well. It fills the space really well. A very busy sounding drum work. I kind of like the vocoder sort of effect on the last bridge. I thought it fit really well. And the bridge after the second verse could have been like a hook all of its own. I think that was like just a little quick, catchy moment. I could definitely see like my younger self like singing this in my bedroom, despite like how much my family would not want me to be doing that.
Yeah.
Loudly singing in my room. I don't know if that makes sense without that context. Next up, guys, disgusting Steel City rotted death metal Consuming Misery has released Cosmic Mutilation. This is like a crazy lo-fi death metal track. Sounds sick.
It's authentic, it's pure, it's unapologetic. It's got those crunchy treble charged riffs. the lo-fi death metal at its finest. It's super cool. The genre continues to present itself in like a modern day where like anyone with like an interface and like an Apple computer can like do some bedroom production. Subscribe to our Lander affiliation and through our bio. Anyone doing that can kind of get away with doing all sorts of different genres. But death metal specifically seems to really pride themselves on the lack of production, because that's really where the genre was born from, right? And like bands like Cannibal Corpse, who have like a major budget, kind of sound clean. A lot of people don't really like fans of the band really don't like that about the modern stuff that's coming out these days. This kind of just keeps it grounded in that sense, where it's like definitely in its roots, and like you can get away with kind of making these tracks and sounds. It's super cool. And they're fairly active. They're playing a lot of shows, so definitely catch them in there in your neck of your woods. And shout out to Nicolas. Say hi to Nicolas for me, the singer. He's always a fan of Bananecdotes. So keep it up, guys.
Yeah, I like that. This band and like Mortuary Slab, they really use the lo-fi production as like an artistic tool. I really appreciate that.
London partycore band Glitches have released A Cause for Insanity. Super cool. This took those like deep fried southern metalcore riffs and paired them exceptionally with more of like a screamo style riff or like vocals. This felt both familiar and new at the same time. I really like the vocal style, kind of sounding like from Mike from The Devil Wears Prada, or even like Austin Carlisle from like Attack / Mice and Men. This brought me way back to my teenage years. This is kind of like Etid and Devil Wears Prada kind of mixed together. If like you threw them in a pot and like cooked them up a bit and kind of gave them like a more production, like a more modern edge. This is super cool. Taking those tropes and those ideas and just branching them off in new ideas and new avenues is the best way to kind of approach like something like a period piece, rather than just something like completely ripping it off. You know what I mean? Like instead of doing like, ruining something like a legacy, you're pretty much, you're sitting right in that pocket where like you can get away with it, and you're taking new risks with it. And I think that's what's most appealing about this. This is super cool. Shout outs to Glitches. This is 7 Y2Ks out of 10.
Yeah, I completely fell in love with this band. Now, this sounds like 2 albums to me. And again, I wonder if this will be a clicking moment for you, because it clicked for me when I suddenly realized what this band reminds me of. The first band that this band reminds me of, and I know this is a dirty word in 2024, and basically anytime in the last 10 years, Attila.
Okay.
Now, it specifically reminds me of Rage. And you can say what you want about Attila, but Rage is a banger. That is a banger of a record. And this really reminded me of Dr. Acula's Slander.
Ooh.
Like a lot. And that's like an untouched album. It actually got me thinking about how like bands like Dr. Acula and Attila and like that one Dead to Fall record, they created this sort of weird party genre that fizzled out really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And Glitches seems to be carrying the torch right now. Like this is like a music I didn't realize I'd been missing until I heard them. This is some fun ass moshy metalcore. Monster starts hard as hell. It has a crazy breakdown in it. I like the humming thing they do to move into illusions. That's a cool little transition. Every song on this EP goes hard, so it's going to be hard not to sound like redundant as I go through these tracks. I do love the bouncy ass breakdowns and illusions. I like the incorporation of like the southy ass solo in the second breakdown. I like the vocal tone trade-offs that are happening all over this EP. It sounds like there's 2 vocalists. I'm not sure, but it does sound like that's what they're doing. But I didn't look any farther into it. I just listened to it. Dirty Trick is an awesome track. Super good groove throughout it. Venue owners, be warned. This one's no good. Blind Faith is one of my favorites on here, but honestly, I do like them all. I don't think I can actually pick a favorite. Has such a bouncy ass track. It's just giving me like big Etid energy on that one. Break Me goes hard as hell. Kind of crazy that this very specific type of music was really relegated to so few bands. Like Every Time I Die kind of fits in there, but they've always been definitely elevated over a band like Dr. Acula or Attila. It's Dr. Acula. This sounds like Dr. Acula to me. And the album Slander, if you haven't heard Slander by Dr. Acula, lyrical content's not great in terms of where we're at now as a culture. But that album goes, dude. That is a good album, and so is this. This is on that level for me, like a Rage or a Slander or whatever that Dead to Fall record was with Major Rage.
Yeah.
I am actually, you know what? I'm calling this genre Major Rage.
Nice.
Toronto hardcore purists Plutos Kiss have released 5 songs.
Like I knew you would, just to watch it fall. Like I said you would, just to watch you.
5 songs for US. We've had a lot of bands bringing us back to the early 2000s on this list, from like a emo post-hardcore perspective. But this reminds me of getting into like hardcore for the first time. Bands like Comeback Kid and Have Heart and Cursed and A Day and a Death Wish. The fast 2-step riffs in here, the pushed yells that like border on a scream, big anthemic vocals, lots of wheeze, not a lot of I feel this way, a lot of we feel this ways, which was always something I liked about hardcore, that sort of inclusionary like theme to the lyrics. This is a blink and you'll miss it release. This is 5 songs coming in at just like 5 minutes and some change. It's worth every single second of that time. Favorite track is Watch You Fold. Fuck yeah.
Very 80s hardcore inspired, like even if in its production, big fuzzy sounding guitars, tight sounding drums in the mix, simple in its execution but impactful with its delivery, huge 2-step parts. Yeah, I know, like classic hardcore. Like this is for fans of like Gorilla Biscuits, Agnostic Fronts, Youth of Today. This was super cool. Yeah, I really like that kind of like authenticness, especially when they kind of do it with the production, because it definitely sounds like this band could have came out of that time. So like I really like that. I like the execution with that. Sounds great. Shout out to Plutos Kiss. Toronto Wavy Haze, Sham Family have A Deaf Portrait of Peace. This was a cool release. This was like beach fuzz with like a bit of shoegaze attitude, abrasive at times, but could quickly hone it back in, like could quickly reel it in. Kind of reminds me of Fiddler, Waves, but kind of like even Sonic at Youth at times I wrote down. Like this band wasn't afraid to take some creative risks. I don't necessarily think they always paid off perfectly, but I think it was the idea that they were able to explore this is like definitely important for a band. And by no means was it like bad. I don't think necessarily maybe the production could have like in a bigger space. This leaves room for other stuff for them to do with like other releases that they can do. But this was super cool. The tracks, what was it? The world is changing around you / me were like borderline like a mantra induced meditation with like haunting noises placed behind it. This was super cool. The production was really good on it. It feels like it was a little wet at times, but again, that was kind of like stylistically done on purpose. Cool record. Where did you hear these folks? I wanted to know, like, where did you come across this? How long have these guys been around? Like, we've never covered them before, have we?
Yeah, they played Chubfest. Super interesting listen. A very dynamic blend of punk, shoegaze, surf rock, emotive hardcore at times, and grunge, all wrapped in this like fuzzed out, feedbacky, and unpredictable package. Super infectious songs on here. Some of them are just like immediately sticky, like the second song, I guess, React, which sounds like a B-side from Nirvana's Bleach with more distortion. Peroxide Boys plays out almost like a Death from Above song being sung by Robert Smith. Like it's kind of wild. The titular track, Deaf Portrait, is a fast, affected out hardcore punk song. Out of Tune was my favorite one. It's like a sludgy, sort of like mathy, like hard rock track, reminiscent of something you'd get out of like a more punky chat pile. And that song has one of the most like sullen bridges I've ever heard. Like it's just like straight depressing. Modern Mist sounds like you're playing a Killer song through a broken speaker. and it works. Like it really works for what it is. The World is Changing gave me full on anxiety. It's very much an uncomfortable interlude. And the closing track is like a big 18-minute multi-dimensional acid trip sort of epic. Yeah, this band has like a very original sound, in my opinion. It's hard to summarize really what this is through words. So yeah, I would just recommend checking this out. This is super cool.
Yeah. If it, like, would love to see this. Like, I always get like this with bands, but I'm always just like, what is their next release gonna be? And like, that was a really cool release. Don't get me wrong. Like, I want to definitely let that be the focus. But I'm always curious where a band like that can take it next. And like, we're just sitting here with the popcorn, just ready to get into it. We're entertained by it for sure. Next up, no, it's you.
It's me. It sure is me, Phil. This is embarrassing.
No,
So,
you did it again.
so this band is from Leeds, UK. Because of course they are, because I did it again. This is a punk rock band. They're called Character Actors, and this track is called With Friends Like These, Who Needs Pricks? My ability to add bands from the UK to our locals only doc is something I can't explain. And quite frankly, it scares me how often this has been happening. I think they reached out to us.
Okay, cool.
In my defense, I think so. But yeah, this is nice tongue-in-cheek punk track. It's got an emo sort of delivery on the vocals, catchy, bright, chimey guitars. Bass and drums are mixed real well in here. Kind of reminds me of like Bayside, but obviously with a very different vocal tone. Shout out to the UK. I keep you in our rotation. You didn't know. You didn't look at the doc first, did you? You didn't know that I did this?
No, I didn't look at the. I didn't look at the name. That's so.
It's
good.
unbelievable, right? It's unbelievable, right? It's always and it's been the UK steady.
It's always the UK.
Unbelievable. In it.
I wrote down Midwest inspired. I did a whole review. This was great. I didn't know that. This was like Midwest emo inspired Midwest UK. I don't know if they have a Midwest.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is a cool blend of genres, both equal parts, like weaker thans and like real friends. Kind of hitting both like the emo and like pop punk, kind of like flushing back and forth into it with like creating like an indie rock. This was sticky lyrics, well performed, and the production isn't overdone, keeping it simple in its delivery. Like it's just keeps it simple right across the board. So yeah, super cool. They're from the UK. I love that, dude. That's so funny.
In it.
Next up, we have Toronto bodybuilding music, Force of Will. I love that you wrote that down. Liam's gonna love that. Liam's gonna love that. Force of Will, World Gorger.
Be the one to blame. How does it feel to kill yourself slowly?
This was super cool. Like, first of all, like if Liam is like a homie of the show, he's a homie like first and foremost. He's one of those like kind of things where like I knew him as a friend, and then he started a band. So I'm like, hell yeah! He used to come in Rock Universe all the time. And he would support Sinner. So yeah, I love this. I love the blend of genres that they do in the execution of their style. They do like pay a homage to like 80s metal and hardcore while keeping it at like a modern pace. Just enough riffing to get the job done without overdoing it. Like just to get, this band doesn't seem like they need to do like a whole lot of practicing to show up before a show. Like they could just get in and riff, but like the riffs are still super complicated enough, if that makes sense. You know what I mean when I say that? Like it doesn't seem like super like, over technical. This isn't like tech metal by any means, but they also do a cover of Pray for Plagues by Bring Me the Horizon live. I don't know if you knew that, so it kind of like makes sense after you hear this. Some of the riffs where they do where like they do those like quick tapping like runs after that at the end of like a chugging riff, like kind of like those kind of riffs. But they got lots of cool like dive bombs going on in this, which is like a staple of like metallic hardcore and like thrash. Of course, they've got Lance Crowder, who's in Contempt, but he also played in Sedition. I don't know if you're familiar with Sedition. You would probably really like them if you've never checked them out. They were kind of a flash in the pan. But sounding super big on all these on that track there, that was great. Yeah, Force of Will rules. I believe that's a reference to a Magic card too. So like, we love the nerdiness, we love his powerliftingness. It's just like so authentically somebody. Like this is great. I like how the music speaks for itself. There's no like super major branding behind it. They just kind of just like come out and say this is like who we are. This is like, they're like, what am I trying to say here? They're not trying to be the coolest hardcore band on the scene. They're just here to play the heavy music, and I appreciate and acknowledge that. That's super cool.
This is the type of shit that makes me want to deadlift a pickup. The riffing in here is massive. Lots of tremolos, little shreddy licks in there, big old dive bombs. Double kick is just pounding through this whole EP. Vocals are very militant, very attention demanding. Breakdowns aplenty, just all over here. Very raw recording and mixing. You can like hear the guitarist sliding down the neck on the recording. Gives it a very like live environment feeling, despite the mix being so nice and cleaned up. Each track has a guest feature. We love that on here. You got the vocalist of Contempt, who you just told me is in the band. You got the vocalist of Spirit of Vengeance and the vocalist of Prism. So that's sick. We love all those bands. That's just a match made in heaven all over here. This is beatdown hardcore that will appeal to those like annoying metal guitar nerds.
And you said deadlift a car. What's your PR? What's your deadlift PR?
My personal repertoire.
Yeah, like your personal like record.
It's a guy named Andy handles my PR.
No, I mean like what's your personal record for like a deadlift?
What are you doing to me?
I want to know.
I don't
want to
know
know how much.
I don't know.
I just asked.
I only lift things out of sheer purpose. If nothing needs to be lifted for no reason, I ain't doing it.
I've been at the gym, and was it 280 was my.
All right, fine. I'll start listening to more Force of Will. And I'll go to the gym and I'll see how much I can deadlift just for you. If we hit 1,000 subscribers, I'll find out how much I can deadlift. We have to get Bannockdotes tattoos. It's been like 7 months or something. We have them. They're on our asses. You guys will never see them. If you get us to 1,000 subscribers to see the Bannockdotes tattoos. All right. Niagara post-metalcore Killing Cosmos have released a new track called A Moment in Time. I did enjoy this one more than the first one. It's a little more bouncy, and the dueling vocal styles work better in this one than the previous one, in my opinion. This feels more like an undermined track than like a kill switch engage track, and I think that suits them a lot better. So I'd like to see them sort of keep things in this direction. Personally, if I controlled their band, which I don't, so do what you want. That's my opinion. But yeah, I like that. I think this track was an improvement.
This is like post-hardcore. It kind of reminds me of that early 2000s, like that, even in its production and a sound like of a bygone era. Really, As They Dying, Poison the Well, Kill Switch Engage. I think if anyone's into that sound, they won't have a problem getting into it. Big freaking mutton chops and big like spacers, if you know what I mean. A handful of dissonant breakdowns along in the mix with some riff fulfilled going on in the song. Well executed. The performance is great on this track. The singing kind of solidifies that like nostalgic vibe that I'm talking about. And like I think I was talking to you before we got started here. Kind of reminds me of like that early Holly Springs Disaster EP that they put out before Motion Sickness.
Yeah,
Love.
I listened to it. I agree with you.
And
me and Kyle were at a show and we saw the Holly Springs Disaster like super earlier into their career. And we just went up as like teenagers. We were like, you guys are amazing. And they just handed us that demo you're talking about, the 3-song demo. I can picture it in my head. The white cover, the cattle skull. I can picture it up there. It's in my noggin.
Next up is Tyler's favorite band.
It's true. I really like them.
This is Gilgamesh with 3 Mile Island.
Everything is cursed here. Spooky with my enemies, don't sing out. All the tears.
This is always delivering something interesting when we come across them, because we've covered them before. They're politically outspoken and deliver it in such an interesting manner. By no means do they sonically sound by System of a Down, but they come to mind when I think of this band. They just they're not scared to try some experimental stuff without within the genre, without breaking down walls and unknown territories. This is super cool. Whether it be a heavy bass riff or eccentric vocals, Gilgamesh kind of offers a sonic experience. It's very appealing. The band Thursday also came to mind when I was listening to this, because you know how War All the Time.
This song specifically.
Yeah, I guess 3 Mile Island. But War All the Time kind of was they offered a political side of something, but did it in a very emo, they served it to you on an emo kind of platter there. But this is also kind of did a blend of post-hardcore with an avant-garde punk infused new metal sound. I get all sorts of flavors with this band. Even early Foxy Shazam came to mind. And this may seem like a maze, or for maybe folks who aren't necessarily familiar with this kind of stuff, but people who are familiar with mathcore or post-hardcore will really kind of pick up on how dialed in this band is, and realize how calculated they are. They keep it simple, but the complexity it's all there. It's really interesting.
This is probably the closest we've gotten to a normal song from Gilgamesh so far. It has a post-hardcore vibe to the instrumentals, in my opinion, and I also wrote down it just has the presence of System of a Down in it without it taking anything directly from it. Idols as well. I've always kind of gotten a bit of an Idols vibe from this band. That doesn't really do it justice, though, because this vocalist really does have his totally unique cadence, performance style. It's very, very much unique to him. Vocals sound very desperate. The drums are just putting in overtime on this song. Bass sounds full and heavy. The guitars keep things pretty minimal in this track, but there are moments with these very sour leads that give the song a very menacing vibe. Yeah, don't listen to me. Go listen to Gilgamesh. They rule. They're really, really good. I really like getting to listen to their music every time we do this. Toronto Scrams, Boxcutter have released The Ruthless Criticism of All That Exists. This is abrasive lo-fi, and as we said last time, very intentionally inaccessible. Slightly more accessible than their last release, I think. But yeah, this is pure screamo. They use an intentional grimy and buzzy recording to their advantage. Creates a wall of sound that becomes bigger than the sum of its parts. It's hard to even differentiate things because it just becomes this big static wall in a good way.
Yeah.
I love the song Fuck the 29. I really like the guitar work in it. Hardworking Guts sounds kind of like a Fall of Troy song, which is really cool. Reckoning sounds totally agonized. Yeah, if you need your screamo to be clear and highly produced, this is not the record for you. But if you can get behind the lo-fi presentation here, there's some really, really stellar songwriting going on. And I can imagine this band just sounds so good live.
Oh, yeah.
I think that live is where this band is really going to shine. And I want to see them. So I'm going to do my best to do that.
Yeah, Boxcutter was one of those bands that we covered through that split last year that we just kept doing it after everything.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
So I definitely stoked on this. Yeah, I also wrote down Fall of Troy, Dance Gavin Dance. This is mathcore, but also with its grittiness behind it. Swancore, I believe, is primarily a thing where written by Will Swan of Dance Gavin Dance, pairing jazz chords and riffs with a post-hardcore edge. What I really liked about Boxcutter was also the production. It was very DIY, underproduced, sounding with all its best qualities. They have this washing reverb on the vocals that adds this underlying layer of just white noise throughout this songs, and making these moments just really big sounding, giving this like character that's best described as like what you were saying, kind of like I wrote down artistic static. Like this was like very well intentionally like unaccessible, but like super cool. 7 safety blades out of 10. Next up we have Vancouver two-step salesman Juice BC with Festival of Fuels. This is cool. Fools, not Fuels. Festival of Fools. What I really liked about this was like right away was the top-notch production. Like that's what I loved. Like this release sounded very big, making everything that's being played come through crystal clear. This has a modern hardcore edge blended with like metallic sound that's becoming more and more popular amongst bands of that genre, full of dive bombs, full of head-bobbing two-step riffs. I love the tight production on the drums, keeping those high hits just like right in the pocket where they need to be. I didn't really pick up on how politically infused this was until like I hit World War III, which was probably my favorite track out of the entire release. Kind of reminds me of Twitching Tongues in the sense that like it's not overcomplicated. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. They also threw in a couple old songs from their first EP with like a similar mix that suited the record. Would love to acquire a vinyl of this if it ever gets pressed. I put 7 World Wars out of 10.
That's a lot of World Wars gonna want. Nearly that many. The juice is friggin' loose, brother. This is like top tier metallic hardcore. They aren't here to do anything other than make your ass mosh. Reverbed out growly ass vocals. Was not expecting the vocal delivery that you get on here. He jumps between these and very classic hardcore style shouting. It works really, really well. The riffing on this album is absolutely great. It's the type of shit I always end up eating up and liking. Like you were saying, this album has some earlier songs remixed to fit the vibe of the album. Really fills out the body of work as well. Gives you a lot more to chew on. I've never heard this band before, so this was like a big, big helping of great music to get into.
Mm-hmm.
I can't pick a favorite track. Victims of the Psychic War is an absolute banger. World War III is a banger. Terror Unit, Drug Game, Festival of Fools. They all bangs. I don't know what else to say. This is just like flawlessly executed hardcore. It's fun as hell. I'll be listening to this a lot. Hopefully they come to Ontario soon. All right. Toronto Introspective Nightmare. Their words, not mine. Loversteeth have a new track called Embedded.
I hear smoke stop ringing, the lights leave a stay. What's best for you, the death for me? What's best for you, the death of me? Hear me! What do I do to make a place and become my mind?
Now, last time we heard them on this show, we got a very haunting and atmospheric track.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like a nice, heavy one.
Mm-hmm.
This was a welcome surprise. Dylan from The Good Depression is on this track, and he sounds great as usual. He's one of my favorites, like doing it in Ontario right now. I really like his vocal style and his lyric style. But I don't want to overshadow the stellar vocal performance coming from the singer of Loversteeth himself on here. I've seen this band live a couple times. I saw them recently. I heard them do this track. He sounds great live. This isn't like studio magic and just being able to record well. Like, he is a phenomenal vocalist. This song is big, very menacing at times. I like the Linkin Park core style passage, the almost rapped passage in it, just to like add a new dynamic and break up the song a little bit. The song's a pitter, and I'd love to hear them do not all of their music, because I do like their more sort of subdued atmospheric stuff, but I'd like to hear them do a few more songs in this like heavier direction. This is really good stuff.
I was immediately getting Corey era from Norma Jean, like that metallic, dirty southern edge, but like not in a Maylene sense, like in an Every Time I Die sense. This is another big sounding produced song. I feel like this song is, you could see this easily being played in like an arena. I was getting some 18 Visions as well. You know how like they weren't afraid to blend some of those like rock riffs in those later records with those like post-hardcore metalcore edge. Of course, we have Dylan of Good Depression, like you mentioned. He fit perfect for this song. And like if there was a coin and every time I die was on one side and Norma Jean was on the other, I feel like Loversteeth could be on one side and Good Depression could be on the other side of that coin. They really complement each other really well. And actually, that being said, I would love to hear a switcheroo between the two bands. I would love to hear them kind of play into maybe what Good Depression can do of some of those tracks that you're talking about, like the Loversteeth stuff, and maybe Loversteeth doing like a heavier Good Depression song. So that could be cool. But this is or like that, or like a big tour together, because they really complement each other, and we love to see the what's the word? Maybe the synergy between the two bands. Love to see that happen. Next up, we have Guelph Death and Mosh, Tortugal Sacrifice, with their EP. Now, so I just want to branch off into something really quick, and by no means am I complaining, but I feel like I need to acknowledge it. Those like gremlin highs, those like vocals that I feel like are a modern deathcore edge. Like, I think it's been a trope since like Will Ramos has joined kind of like Lorna Shore and kind of done those like stuff to made it really, really popular. And I just want to point that out because like deathcore often finds a way to like reinvent itself. Like it's a genre that's been around for about 20 years now. And it's, it started off with our very fast double kick being like one of the biggest tropes of the genre. And then kind of like the slow kind of like big breakdowns where like big airy gaps happen, and then kind of gent kind of found its way in like deathcore. So I think it's really cool that Tortugal Sacrifice kind of really use those deathcore tropes that I'm talking about, especially with those like Will Ramos highs. You've got those machine gun style double kicks, the pig squeals of all ranges, with like the synthetic sounds that help elevate moments within this EP. I do think the drums sound a titch too loud in this, because I wish I could hear a little bit more of that riffing cutting through the mix. But that's sometimes how deathcore can get, especially with how highly produced it can sometimes be, because it's a complex genre. So what are we talking about? I do prefer kind of like a more hardcore side of the deathcore with bands like Acacia Strain, or like even like, I don't know if you remember like Abacab, like the code.
Album.
Yeah, the Survivalist.
One album from that band that has lived on. People are still like, play Abacab. Like, that was a great album.
But yeah, I haven't said this, or so I typically say this about the deathcore bands that we cover on the show. It's all fine and dandy in the studio. You could really put that production in. You could really pump in a lot of the stuff. But the best way to impress me in a band like this is flawlessly executing this live. So if you do ever get to see this band, definitely go down and see them. But like, if you need to use the triggers and samples and even inner ear monitors, like, make it happen, because there's a lot of things happening in a genre like this. So don't half-ass a sound like this live is pretty much what I'm saying. So if you do get a chance to see Tortugal Sacrifice, let me know how it is. Is it great? Is it authentic? What's going on?
Based on the name and the album artwork, I, for whatever reason, was not expecting this to be so mosh ridden. I thought it was going to be a very like traditional like thrash death metal sort of thing. Yeah, there are a lot of breakdowns and nice grooves on here. The vocals switch between the bellowing lows and that just soaked sounding high, like real demon shit. Drums are fast and furious. Breakdowns hit like a ton of bricks. This feels more like a fusion of early metalcore and deathcore together. Reminds me of the first Suicide Silence record. Reminds me of All Shall Perish, or like if His Blood Runs Black was like a lot heavier. Favorite track on here is Encased in Septic Waste. Gross name, by the way. I love the guitar and drum work on Demon's Prey. Make Me Bleed is another favorite of mine on here. They all go. There isn't really a bad or boring track on here, just some gross and brutal deathcore. Okay, classic metalcore revivalist Vultures put out a self-titled EP.
Whatever was
This band really does take me back to early 2000s metalcore, like the Blueprint sort of shit, Darkest Hour, Agony Scene, Still Remains. I could go on. Melodic and heavy, bouncy two-step harmony riffs, clean vocals used very sparingly so that you don't get that overplayed out thing that happened in metalcore, and probably even more so modern day metalcore where it's a lot of singing now, which isn't a problem, but whatever. I'm just talking now. Guitar tone on this recording sounds so nice. Vocal performance is solid. Songs have a strong sense of cohesion, and the parts transition together really well. Yeah, if you've been trying to scratch an itch for like early metalcore, these guys are a good set of nails.
This was kind of a tough thing to dig up on Apple Music, and it's unfortunate because you've been plagued by friggin' Yeezus himself with Vultures 2.
I had the same problem. I had the same.
It's unfortunate.
I had to like go through their Instagram.
Yeah, it sucks because like apparently this new one is terrible, and anyway, it was you really had to like guide yourself to find this self-titled EP, but nonetheless, I found like it had that modern metalcore edge with like that late 2000s gent kind of sound that were with those drowning leads over downtuned riffs, kind of thinking of like intervals within the ruins. Even Periphery comes to kind of come to mind when I was listening to this. Very cohesive, consistent sounding, mid-level production in the sense that like it's not underdeveloped, but it's not overdeveloped. Like I'm not saying like mid in a bad sense. Like I'm very saying like it's in a perfect place where it needs to be, where it's not highly produced, but it's not by no means like underproduced. It's right there. And this is I wrote down. I wrote down this. I must have been high when I was writing this down because, Vultures, I must have had a thought process where, in St. Catharines, it wasn't uncommon, and maybe just throughout Southern Ontario to see like turkey vultures circling, just like, you know what I mean? Where like you kind of see something circling up in the sky, turkey vultures. You would see them pretty often in St. Catharines, actually. Now, out here in New Brunswick, get this, you don't see turkey vultures, you straight up see bald eagles all the fucking time. Bald eagles are just flying wild out here. You see them everywhere. They're massive birds, Tyler. You think you could take on a bald eagle?
They pick up goats. They pick up mountain goats. They whip them down cliffs. I don't feel comfortable putting the video on screen.
Do you think you could take it if you had a chance to fight a bald eagle? Do you think you could win?
Do I have a pistol?
No, just your fist.
No, definitely not.
You don't think so? I think you could.
I don't think I can stop the heart of America with just my face.
You don't think
I'll
if you
try.
grabbed it, you could just friggin' shake it and friggin'...
No, it'd start pecking your shit. Are you kidding me? Grab it? Grab it by what? It's got like claws. Those are evil. They actually, and they're like dickheads. They like, again, like mountain goats are just chilling. They just pick them up and throw them off the cliff, not even to eat them, just because they're like, I felt like killing something. They are such an incredible representation of the United States of America. It's kind of amazing. They nailed picking their animal.
We built what?
Just a big old terrifying asshole flying around.
And we picked what? The beaver?
Yeah. That's sick. They get shit done.
Oh man, I'm super excited to be talking about this. This is Vancouver Island. Vancouver? I like that.
Vancouver, that's a good genre.
Vancouver.
You heard it here first.
Vancouver Island. I think they're actually on Victoria Island. Vancouver Island. Hardcore nonetheless. This is our homie Dalton and his band Corrode with Demonstration EP. This is super sick. I love Dalton. Dalton, he played in bands like I Buried Your Flowers, Monologues, Head Rush. He was also the original drummer in 1,000 Times Goodnight, hence the song My Friend Dalton. And he was also one of the hosts of Not Just a Phase podcast when they first interviewed me. That kind of sparked me creating this whole channel. So needless to say, Dalton has quite a bit of cred in Niagara, and I'm super excited to hear that he's settled out there, and he's got a new band, so it just makes me super excited. I I really kind of focused on the drumming on this release just because he's a friend of mine and I'm super excited to talk about this. And that being said, this is some of the best drumming I've heard from Dalton. Don't get me wrong, he's a fantastic drummer, and some of those other bands, especially at Buried Your Flowers, he does some phenomenal drumming. But this band, he really keeps it all together. It's this is gritty, this is tough, this is aggressive hardcore with just that slight metal influence to give him that edge. The vocals are sticky, kind of really cling on to the songs there. This sonically belongs amongst the Bay Area bands like Gulch, Tsunami, and Drain. This, if they had 7 other songs, this would be like easily on one of my top albums of the year. It's just an EP. This is like a high-end produced EP. I'm a huge fan of that. If it was a record, it'd be right on that list. And if I can ever get a vinyl copy of this, I would totally get it. I love this. Corrode. Shout out to you guys.
This is more of that beautiful metal-soaked hardcore that we and I very much love. Absolutely pissed off vocal performance, very scathing anti-capitalist, anti-war lyrics. Guitar work is a very nice mix of like thrash and hardcore. I love the riffing. I love the use of harmonics. Caught myself stank facing basically the entire time I was listening to it. All the songs rule. No point in picking a favorite. Snake in the Grass is a pitter. Gang Violence has like a System of a Down energy to the instrumental and a very nice like triplet breakdown in it. So there is a track called WCNSF. Looking into the lyrics, that stands for Wounded Child, No Surviving Family. If you haven't read the lyrics to that track, take a look. Really chilling stuff. Great vocals, but also great lyrics all over this EP. They're really, really good. Weekend Over Time is a bop. Crazy track. I love this band. Vancouver seems to be sending their best this locals only. Montreal Slutch. I had to look up what that means and I don't remember, but it's on their Bandcamp. Dopethrone have released an EP or a record, probably based on length, called Broke Sabbath. Great name. This is ethereal and just inhuman death metal covered in haze. Sounds like White Zombie being played by ghosts. Guitars are like super fuzzed out. Drums are loose. They have like a reverb on them that sounds nice. The vocals sound 100% like some sort of like ghoul or like specter. Like it's so crazy, the vocal performance. My favorite track was Universe. And you had the pleasure of going on the road with these folks recently, right?
Yeah. It's no secret that Hellbent got to, the tour with these folks. I love Dopethrone. They're homies. They put on an incredible live show. They really replicate that sound. Their frontman and guitarist Vince is like he's quite an eccentric character. Like I watched him kill a lobster at the side of a train tracks when we had like a train track side barbecue. And we ate some steaks. It was really obscure. I also watched him buy an entire gas station's worth of spiked Arizona iced tea because they ran these cases up at $2.50 a pop. So he like bought one and was like, "This was only $2.50," and went back in and bought the entire stock. So he had like so many of these.
The cashier didn't think that was weird.
No, they didn't pick up on it. It was so insane. I also want to acknowledge how cool the album artwork is. That's not something that they digitally made. That's actually a photo that they took. Get this. Vince has a DIY shooting range in his apartment.
In his apartment. In his apartment.
He's like a professional weapons dealer. He's very eccentric. He kind of reminds me of like how Hunter S. Thompson being played by Johnny Depp was in Fear and Loathing Las Vegas. Like he's just like this very very interesting character. So like that album cover is like all these bullets and stuff, and then he actually like used paint to like actually draw out the word Dopethrone. He's so insane. But yeah, he has a shooting range in his apartment. I don't know.
What do you mean?
I didn't go and see it, but that's what he apparently has, like somewhere you can shoot guns.
Like how, like if I lived beside a guy who had built a shooting. What do you mean?
He must have
We
like.
need to. Can we interview him? What does that mean?
We'll definitely get him on the show. He's super.
We
cool.
have to talk to him. That's crazy.
Yeah. Anyway, the
You're
song
blowing my mind right now.
Yeah,
No, hold on.
Broke.
Keep going, but I just need to process. So I'm trying to picture what you mean.
Broke Sabbath kind of reminds me of like early Cancer Bass, where they were like doing that like Motorhead Black Sabbath sound, just like low end thunderous riffs with catchy grooves, leaving you like banging your head. Drony, sludgy, stoner sounding at times, but very much gross and gritty and wet sounding. Their drummer Sean too, he's very interesting. He owned a record store that tragically caught on fire recently, and if you want to support this band and beyond the band itself, definitely go check out Sound Central Records. He still has a disc going on, so you can definitely still buy records from him online. But if you want to help a band like this just go a little bit further and actually like help like their livelihood, check out Sean and his Sound Central Records. Solid dude too. I really liked playing with all these folks.
Hell yeah. I need to find out about this shooting range. I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. I'm just going to be laying in bed thinking, Googling, can you build a shooting range in your apartment? And what does that even mean? Fuck, man.
Flower City Infestation, Lice with their release World of Greed.
Don't think you really are that. So your time will be changing. You don't like that. You will fight back.
The production is far cleaner than the first EP. I did really enjoy that kind of like rough around the edges sound that they had with that first EP. It kind of added the characters and the music, although it's very much like kind of like a one-trick pony because like you can't really do that sound live. So like I understand abandoning it and kind of cleaning it up, which I actually prefer in this sense. Mm-hmm. Kind of reminded me of like specifically the EP Born to Hate by the band Rock Bottom.
Interesting. Shout out,
you know what I mean?
Banger EP.
Yeah, like just like super gritty, like those vocals really cut through. This release was like a significant MP like improvement from the last EP. Like I liked the last EP quite a bit, and this is just like an elevated version of that sound. This band hasn't been very like around for very long, and they're already like leaps and bounds doing crazy things. So like you can tell that they're learning a lot about their presentation like early on in their musical careers, which is like such an important thing to do as a band. And I also think it's funny that they have the song making fun of the old heads. Like I think that's funny. I think it's funny because like we were both there once. We were making fun of the old people that we are now. It's like, it'll happen to you. Like,
it's not me. It's the kids who are wrong.
It's the kids who are wrong. No, it's just.
Am I out of touch?
In a scene that preaches equality, it's all about acceptance until you get up to age 30. Then we don't like you anymore. I'm just kidding. I hope you realize I'm not real, but. Super cool release. Lice is even the marketing behind it is super interesting to see. I really like Lice.
Off Leash crew can't stop releasing great music. Lice is sick. The titular track is just such a bop. Sets the tone perfectly for this EP. Absolutely fuzzed out, power violency music with like unhinged guitar leads and vocals that sound like they should be coming out of a Rottweiler. I feel like this is another band that has just shown like a tremendous amount of growth between their releases. Like you were saying, I like the first EP, but this is a lot more groove focused. The guitar work and drums have had a serious elevation. Vocals sound more confident. They're doing more dynamic things with their voice, trying out different tones. They're pushed a little more up front in the mix. Hearing different band members from the band go in on different vocal parts mixes things up in a really fun way as well. You have Jake from Mile End and Dear God both in this band. So that's, there's a lot of talent to pull from here. This group of guys is like the Off Leash as a music collective is responsible for just such a crazy amount of good music coming out of Ontario right now. Mm-hmm. It's wild. I really like Prevention of Peace. It's a cool song, standout track for me, probably my favorite on the record. It has a lot of cool ideas in it. Got It Good sounds like if Korn was a hardcore band. That was another one of my favorite tracks. Old Head, I agree. Funny song and great pit track. the way this band mixes its sludge and hardcore elements is just such like a nice, they've hit a really good blend of the two right now. This band had a very strong start. This EP is like, for me, an instant classic. Like this is a band to watch. I could actually see this band getting really big with the right marketing. Speaking of the Flower City filler haters, get it? Because they're 100% pure. They release Shine Gold, Heal Pain. And to me, this is just another total level up. Grooves are groovier. The vocals sound smooth as hell. I love the cadence on the vocals. The mix sounds way more clear and pummeling. The speed up on Pure Style is sick. I like how the track just like slowly speeds up as it goes. DOF is a crowd mover. And I just want to give a big shout out to the drum work all over this project. The drum work on No More Lies is great. Feel It is probably my favorite track on here. The song has a great sense of momentum. And again, that is aided by just like this great, great drum work that's all over this. Mosh Groove at the end of that song also gives me like a big, like early Turnstile vibe. Yeah. I would have never guessed in a million years that Brampton would have such a crazy hardcore scene. Like you love to see this.
You love to see it off leash affiliated. We love to see it. Yeah, this EP has some good production. Songs are structured well. Lots of cool breakdowns. Lots of cool two steps in the mix. I really liked. I was a big fan of that. Like, I'm always a big fan of like the Kill Whitney Dead like voice clips and movie clips, and then like especially where they come from and know we're like referring where they're coming from. But I don't know if you've ever seen that news article. There's this like news it's like a news broadcast of like this one they're covering a story about how somebody's vehicle got vandalized. It says like, Mike, you are a cheater, and the person whose vehicle who owns it wasn't named Mike at all. Like it's like the person vandalized the wrong vehicle, and they did like a news story about it, and like the newscaster is so dramatic.
Mike. See what you've done? I don't know who you are. I don't know where you are. But you may want to start changing your ways. Or changing your name.
And they use that clip in the EP. I just think it's like, if you haven't
That's
seen
so sick.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before.
I'll have to link it to you. It's funny. It's
Are
good.
we throwing it on screen? Are we throwing it on
Oh
screen?
yeah. It's definitely like
So I've watched it then. That's sad.
Yeah. Last up, we have Niagara's favorite hardcore band, Windoc, with Human Error. This just brings the heavy. There's something authentic. You know, we've got these like veterans of the hardcore scene who've been around and played in cool bands for, you know, Easy Way Out. And I there's other bands that they've played in that are slipping my mind. Demolition, I believe. I don't remember. There's a lot of cool stuff going on with that Welland hardcore scene. And it's cool to see bands like Windoc kind of keeping that, like keeping it alive. Super authentic. It also has a lot of character to it. Very traditional hardcore, but it's very like it's got a sense of awareness, and it's like a modern day delivery. We also get the origin of the band name, which is super cool, in the self-titled track. Truthfully, I'll be honest,
I was wondering.
I don't know if you thought this. What did you think Windoc was?
I didn't know. I just thought, like, I've never thought about it too far, but I knew I had no idea what it meant.
I thought it was a Windows PC document.
I knew you were going to say that. I actually knew you were going to say that.
Couldn't have been further from the case. We actually get like a far more interesting story. And like, it kind of has like this like straight edge attitude story to it, because it's like somebody who was inebriated behind the controls of a bridge kind of demolished I think a boat called Windoc, I believe.
A ship.
Yeah.
I think so.
So like there's like this like, you know, straight edge attitude kind of buried in with the lore of the name, which is super cool. I like that. Human Error was super cool, authentic sounding. I hope it doesn't get overlooked, because like there wasn't too much marketing behind it. I think they just kind of put it out on a Friday, which is like what some of these Welland bands like to do, like Mil-Spec, kind of, they just release like Marathon like out of the blue, and like, you know,
Your album a year,
yeah,
just dropped it.
super, yeah,
great,
this is
great
like,
record.
so the marketing behind it doesn't need to necessarily be there, but I don't want it to ever get overlooked. Windoc's Human Error, super good. You definitely got to check it out, especially if you just like are a fan of like that old, authentic, traditional sounding hardcore. No bells and whistles. There's no fucking crazy things happening. There's no gimmicks involved. There's nothing like tongue-in-cheek about this. This is very raw, yeah, bodybuilding kind of friggin' kind of hardcore.
Yeah, this is just like how I like my women, Phil. Loud and heavy. breakdowns on top of breakdowns, big loose two steps, reminiscent of the era of like earlier beatdown bands like Recon and American Me, but with like more modern and, in my opinion, better songwriting. Vocals are very big, very bellowy. Guitar, bass, and drums are mixed together very well. The master sounds great. All the elements are hitting to provide a lot of like impact on the chug riffs. The way everything's mixed just makes those chug riffs feel so heavy and impactful. This band never lets up on the groove. Every single note on this album, aside from the interlude, is just a body mover. Every second of this thing playing, like your head can nod, your body can move. This is a mosh focused record. Favorite tracks for me were 21 Grams, Death Sentence, Enforced Fear, and of course WTGW. Can't go wrong with a feature from Connor from Reality Denied. This was a very highly anticipated record. It seemed like everyone was just so stoked that this dropped, and we're right here with it. This album rules. Shout out Windoc. Fuck yeah.
Well, there you have it, folks. That was Locals Only 10. What did you think? Leave it all down below in the comments below. If you are a band that released a new tune recently, send it our way. We might have it up ready, slated for the next docket, but keep us on our toes. Send it your way. Don't be shy. You can hit us up at our emails, banecdotes@gmail.com. You can hit us up on our Instagram at banecdotes, BANDECDOTES. Or you can reach out personally to either Ty or I if you have us on our social medias. I'm just at Phil Paxton. I believe you're just, what's yours? At Ty?
At Pushover T. I can't believe you made me say it out loud. Now I feel stupid about it.
But yeah, no, reach us out if like we're not shy about featuring bands. Apparently we cover bands from Mexico to UK, and who knows,
we do a lot of UK bands in it.
Super cool. If you aren't already, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel, give this video a like. And if you do some recording and do stuff yourself and have a program called Lander, you can check it out through our bio. We have a discount code. You can save yourself a little bit of money. Yeah, a little goes a long way. And yeah, I think that covers it all. We've been your hosts. I'm Phil Wine Lips Paxton, and it's my co-host with me, Ty Cheeto Fingers McAllister.
I'm a dusty boy. I got lots of Cheetos.
There's priceless enough for you tonight.